And now to the speaker in this session. So we have Katja. She's an industrial designer turned user experience designer, also moving from the Valley back to Europe, to Zurich. And we are really looking forward to hear what she has to say about customer experience and user experience.
Thanks, Adriana. I hope you can hear me well. Well, I hear myself now well. So welcome and thanks for the introduction. I first have a question to all of you. I really would like to know who of you works in user experience. Please raise your hand. Okay, there are quite a few. So special thanks to you guys that you showed up, although I had that title written on the program. So no worries. UX future looks bright. And this title will change in its meaning maybe a little bit after my talk. What I want to do today is first talk about our focus on user interactions with digital media. Before I want to extend that view and show how we reach customers beyond digital media. That's kind of the scope. So today, we are basically in an online-dominated world with unlimited information and also unlimited possibilities for self-expression. In 2013, American adults spend on average 5 hours per day online, and 70% of all customers research online before they, for example, purchase offline. So this brings us to a key message. User experience is really more than ever key to success. Because most businesses really have online experiences within their business strategy. So there are actually 3 dependencies forming a user experience. So 1 is the system itself, and 2 is, of course, the user and all his cultural background, his preferences or hers. And then there is the context of use. So in what kind of situation I am entering into this interaction. There's also the developer's point of view, and the developer really has to answer 3 questions. So how it works, how it looks, and how it feels. And what is really interesting is the question why UX gained so much influence during the last years. And I would say the answer is that the internet brought a new challenge. The user is basically left on his own in front of the screen. So you really have to enable him to navigate through the content without any help. And that really pushed user experience. And in the end, the main goal is self-enabling. So the user is basically in a bubble when he's online. There is this model of Jesse James Jarrett. He talks about 5 layers that are needed to really self-enable the user. And the first layer is about the strategy. So what is this goal of this thing? What's supposed to do for the user? That's the first question we have to answer. And then the second is, what are the functionalities and the features that are needed to put the strategy into practice? Next, how do these functionalities all come together in a structure? And then, of course, how do I enable the user to interact with these elements? And then, this is what we experience every day, there is the surface and the design. And what's really important to mention is that this goes from abstract to concrete. And for us, it's really a lot easier to talk about concrete things. But if you don't have a solid strategy, the project will more or less fail because the user won't really understand what you are showing him on the surface. So this is something we realize in our usability tests quite often. People can talk about how it looks like and if they like it or not, but if they really don't get the structure, or they don't know what the goal of this all is, then they basically don't have a mental model, and they won't really, they won't really understand what this is all about. So I will show you 2 social media websites and explain my personal experience with them. And this is kind of related to these elements or to these layers. So I will talk about Facebook and LinkedIn. I have 184 friends on Facebook, and I spend around 5 hours a month only. I'm a really passive user. And why am I not using it? So there are several reasons. First, many options without a clear goal. I basically don't really know for myself what my goal is. So it might be self-expression. I can basically build a second online version of myself. It might be staying in contact, but there can be many goals. So for me, it's not really defined. And then there's basically no real support to set it up and maintain the profile. So for me, I really was never into using it a lot, so my profile is kind of boring also. And then there is no real assistance to create content as well. So you're basically free to do everything on Facebook. Compared to this, I have almost the same connections on LinkedIn, which is kind of funny. I spend almost the same time on LinkedIn. But in comparison, my options are really connected to a kind of clear goal. And this is to connect with the business world, to increase my chances for jobs. And then also, it's a little bit easier to set my personal profile into a really good shape, one could say. Because, first of all, there's clearly defined content, like, for example, your CV. And then LinkedIn is also sending me emails that are really customized to show me, for example, for like new tools that I could use. And they are really related to what I'm doing on the portal. So this is my personal point of view. And of course, maybe private and business life is not really comparable. On the other hand, the value that I get out of it really has to fit the effort that I put into it. And there is a huge difference. So the time invested in Facebook is for me not worth. I feel like an infrequent user, and I feel there's no related personal journey that I have with Facebook. And I feel it grows against me. So there are more and more features, but as I'm not using it a lot, this gets more abstract to me. And with LinkedIn, it's the other way. First, it got me a job, so that was a good time investment. And I really feel they treat me like a customer because they kind of are part of my journey in professional life. And so they are growing actually with me and not against me. So there are 800 million updates daily on Facebook, which means they're doing something right. Nevertheless, that doesn't tell you the value about these experiences. Are they enjoyable? Do they have value in general? And if we think about how much time we globally spend online, it's 35 billion per month, which translates to 4 million years. I think that's just crazy. I think these experiences that we have online, they should really be enjoyable and also valuable. And the key challenge to really create these valuable, enjoyable experiences is really complexity. So we are surrounded by overwhelming information and offers, but we don't really know what's behind these offers. We can't look into these boxes. So what we are basically doing is we are searching a lot to kind of have an idea and compare the offers. There are services around this that try to help us to compare, and I think they work very well. But then there's also the brand that can reduce burden of choice. Because with the brand, you trust that they deliver on a certain brand promise. So you basically know what's inside the box. So brands are kind of getting more and more important to reduce complexity. But brands are also facing a huge challenge. 89% of consumers' activity is already multi-channeled. So this means, like Starbucks here, this is an example of the Starbucks ecosystem. It really means you have to go beyond the user perspective. So now we are back at the title. We are basically now talking about the extended view, the customer experience. So we need a perspective change from the user's point of view to a more complex customer perspective. And I will now explain what I mean by that. I know there are a lot of definitions, and we can discuss later if there are different point of views. So in case of a user experience, the focus is clearly on the online experience. So in this case, I thought about an online shoe store. So a developer will think about, okay, what do I have to implement so that the shopping experience really works? But then he also considers the use context. So what is before, during, and after the interaction of shopping shoes? But it's all related to that interaction of selling or buying and selling shoes. In contrast to this, the user experience focus lies on the sum of all the customer interaction with the shoe brand. So you basically analyze the sequence of actions, so-called customer journey map as a tool. So you really want to know how do the customers get aware. And then you think about, okay, now they are online, what do they need online? This is where UX comes into play. But then beyond that, you think about, how are the different usage behaviors? And is there maybe a point where I can support my customer within this usage? For example, with repairs, or this is mostly a service. And then, of course, also about what is with the reuse? What do I do when I don't need it anymore? So you're really creating a journey around this brand experience. And this really needs a business strategy. You can no longer think in departments. This is the key challenge. So you really talk about the ecosystem itself. This is the summary of this again. So it's really the one is interaction and the other is a business strategy related to the brand. So there are actually 3 areas where business strategy has to be customer-centered. It's need-based innovation, it's customer-centered culture, and it's customer-centered corporate strategy. And I really want to show you 3 examples of this. The key goal in the end is to really reduce inconsistencies within 3 areas. With it, visual elements, message and story, usability, of course, and need fulfillment. So, oops. Sorry. So we come to Bayersdorf. That's an example for innovation. So what they did, they really tried an open innovation process. And they first decided on, okay, we don't want to create innovation in a lab this time. We really want to find out where the basic needs around deodorant. And they identified blogs and forums, and then really use these insights to create a new product. So the key insight was that a lot of people on these blogs complained about stains on a white textile. So they thought, okay, there has to be a solution to that. So what they basically did, they had around 30 product ideas. So this is one of them that I think is not really helpful. But they had 2,200 consumers actually evaluating the ideas. And then in the end, they really came to a result which looks like this. They have a series of deodorants that have a special chemical component that actually reduces the stains, or maybe there are no stains. I never tried, but that's the key promise. So that was the most successful launch they ever had. They sold more deodorants in 9 months than their competitors did in 1 year. So it was really successful. Another example for the customer-centered culture is Zappos. Who of you know Zappos? Okay, they are like an online service for fashion and shoes. They're really different in terms of their culture. So normally we know an office can look like this. That's how it looks like at Zappos. So I actually visited them. It's really fun to be there. I don't know if it would work in Zurich though, but they basically can create their own little world in their office. So every team has a motto and they create it real colorful. There is an idea behind this, and that's the culture. So the central vision for Zappos is actually to create and deliver happiness. And this means delivering happiness is external to the customer, but they also want to live it internally. So what they do, instead of investing into marketing, they invest a lot into recruitment, training, recruitment and training processes. And they really want their employees to deliver the best service on the phone. So what they basically do, they have a 4-week training, and this training is only about the values of this company. There's nothing else around facts. It's only about the values and the culture. So in the end, they say that's their biggest asset. And by the way, they had, with a net promoter score, 90% of promoters in a row of 5 years. So it's really amazing. They really, like, everyone knows them, and I never heard something negative about this company. So now we come to corporate strategy. And they have Virgin America. Whoever flew with Virgin America? Oh, not a lot, okay. I did it once, and it was amazing because I actually had the comparison between, I don't say the brand now, but a horrible flight and then the nice flight afterwards. And you can say, like, the basic experience with flying is something like this, somehow. And compared to this, oh, okay, so first I will describe this, what it means. So Virgin America is actually also a low-cost airline. So they're not about luxury, really, although they really have their experience in the front row. But like normal low-cost carriers, they have really old airplanes. They fly in and out of secondary airports, and they have really bad service most of the time. And they have a single class of service. So this is how an airplane looks inside if you are a Virgin American customer. It's totally different. The light is really, it's just amazing to be in there. You just have to trust me or believe me that it's true. So they really try to set up an experience. As soon as you enter this plane, everything is different from their competitors. So they create real customer value. For example, there's less back and forth with the flight attendants because you are basically ordering from your seat, and then they know who wants something, and then they go and get it for you. But they are not going back and forth and offer you service. That's really cool, I think. And then they're also really consistent with what they are promising, because like the lounges, everything is really a really enjoyable experience. And they really also know their audience. So this is nothing, maybe older people that really want to save some money and think like, I want someone asking me for drinks. That's not the right company, right? Because the flight attendants are really in the background. You almost don't see them. Then they also have a totally different safety video. It's a comic, actually. And I really watch it over and over again because I really like it. You normally don't look at this so often, I think. So they're really an industry-setting company, and they're really successful doing this. So this all goes far beyond a limited user experience, right? It's a complex, multi-channeled experience. So I talked a lot about the ecosystem and that we have to broaden our view. However, we can take that a step further. So if you are taking on this broader view, there is an opportunity to take these 5 hours we spend online and reanimate real social interaction. I give an example for this. Car sharing. So the thing is, on average, a car is used per day only for 1 hour. And otherwise, you have to pay a lot to park it somewhere, and nobody is using it. And the idea of Really Rides, maybe someone knows them, is that they actually make parking for the car owners profitable. So what they do, they give people in the neighborhood access to these cars. That's the whole idea. So how does the business model look like? So there's an online platform where there are members that know about the service, so they're the car owners and the ones that need cars during the day. And there's real-time information, so I really know what's going on in the neighborhood. So I can choose a car really spontaneously. So that's the matchmaking between owner and the guy or girl needing the car. And then there's an offline marketplace of sharing. So this is the community part, because it always has to be a community to make it work. Because if one member is starting to kind of take advantage or is not reliable, it kind of gets a weird shift. But the amazing thing is that this really works. So the company Really Rides they don't really have issues. So there are even big cars like that are free to get for an hour in San Francisco, which is amazing. Like really not like shitty old cars. And what Really Ride does is then the business service part. So they co-finance, but also they co-insure. So you basically don't have the risk if you as an owner give your car away. So I think this will first have a real impact on local businesses. It strengthens local thinking. And then also it will maybe reduce the impact of the real big companies too. So user experience will always be a core discipline to develop positive experiences, I think. But customer experience will gain impact. It's up to user experts, user experience experts, if they want to extend their sphere of impact and be more in a strategic consultant role. It's up to them. But what is a great user experience if the ecosystem around it doesn't work? Then you basically did your work for nothing. And so this is the online world, and it will always be there. And we need user experience experts that really do great jobs. But then there's also the chance to connect the online with the offline world again. And I think there are great opportunities. And I really hope there are people here in Zurich also who really want to go into this direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions from the audience? Somebody that wants to comment on maybe similar opinions or experiences that Katja has shared with us? Who knew about customer experience?
No question. Yeah. Yeah. Say that again?
Do you blame Facebook or yourself for not using it?
Not really. Maybe that's their business strategy, the way they do it, and they have a lot of users. But I know a lot of people that don't use it really. They are all on Facebook, of course, because you think you have to be on there to kind of know a little bit at least. But I think the idea of really creating something valuable is not really what they are pushing for. So it's more about counting like contacts first, but also it's about, it basically depends on your community, how good the content is, right? So there are some people where I sometimes read what they're saying because they just do it in a nice way. But I would say 80% of the stuff doesn't really interest me. So I think there is a potential to make that better. For example, to really think about different target groups, for example. And then also there is a factor that is cultural. So I think US people, they're way better in maintaining an interesting profile on Facebook because it's more part of their culture to be more like outright and present themselves. I think it's not really European, so there would maybe be a chance to change that. But again, it's a really personal point of view, but what I really think is the basic flaw, if you want to say it, is that I think they don't really have a fundament of a strategy that's understandable or a goal behind it. So there's basically too much that you can do. But again, only my personal opinion.
Do we have other questions?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm just curious how someone from the UX would go to the CX or CX. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're a user experience designer, you're on the website. So how can you go so deep strategically?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a process, but I think in general, like consulting is not really something you learn from scratch anyways. So most people come from really different areas. I think just the acknowledgement that you need to consult more than sitting there and creating something is really, really important, because really good ideas sometimes don't get through because companies still think in their departments. And if you start thinking about customer experience, you really have to think about how it all fits together, and that's the key challenge. And that needs consulting. And I think not everyone that is in UX should switch to CX. It's a personality thing also. And I have a business background, so for me, this is kind of a nice path to take maybe. But I don't even know if it will work yet. So we are trying to incorporate this idea more with our clients. But in most cases, it really means you have to set up a new team. You basically need someone on top coordinating everything, managing it. So customer experience management is for me a new discipline. And I really hope that some people that are more like from the practical part are taking on this job, because otherwise it won't work, I think. You really have to know what's behind it. I hope that answers your question. You're
welcome. How would you describe the difference between modern approach to marketing and customer experience design?
Can you maybe explain that a little bit further?
Like what you told us about reminds me of the classical approach to marketing, that you have the customer in the center and you look at it from a price view, from a view of communication, from a view of the product itself, from the view of the placement of the product, and how you keep a relationship to the customer as well in the modern approach.
Well, I think basically the main difference is that marketing is not so much about the culture within a company, for example. And it's more an external approach. But the three areas I showed that need to be part in customer experience management, they go a little bit beyond that. So you basically also need people that really understand how you can not only have a certain image, but also keep that image, because it's not an image, it's actually your values. And there's a key difference about what you are actually giving a customer as an image and what you basically really live internally. And I think in the long run, a strong brand really needs the value part. And that's the key challenge. And also to, of course, maintain the brand value. This is really a challenge. Yeah? Makes sense?
Do we have more questions? I would have a question as well. So most of the examples that you have given are actually of American companies. I was just wondering whether you think that Europe is also as far in terms of, well, adopting customer experience, or what is your opinion about that?
So the reason why I chose these examples is basically that I know these companies more or less, and I just came to Zurich, so I don't really know a lot of startups here. But I basically think it's not the case that the US is far easier in terms of incorporating CX. It's more about, I think startups are really a lot further in thinking about this than huge companies. And I think that's kind of the same probably in Europe or in the US. But of course, maybe the community really pushing for customer experience is a lot bigger, especially in Silicon Valley. So there are a lot of people who really are customer experience experts or call themselves like that. And of course, there's always the discussion, what do all these, names and disciplines really mean? There are always different interpretations, but I really hope the concept came across, and that's the key point. And it's just a broader view that is harder to reach in a way.
Thank you very much. Katja is going to be around, so you can ask further questions offline. We are meeting here for the last talk at 4:30. Maybe you get a coffee in between.